Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of the Senators Roundtable. I'm your host Jacob Billington, and today I'm here with.
Paul Quinney. Hello, everyone. And I'm not a lot of people know this, but I'm working on a pro hockey career or possibly a pro golf career. But until that pans out for me, I'm writing with the Hockey Writers, and I'm covering the Ottawa Senators, and you can find my work at P Quinney on Twitter, or X, as I guess it's known now.
All right, and I'm Dayton. I have been writing for the Senators with the Hockey Writers since about 2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And so, we're bringing you the Senators Roundtable where you can find all things Ottawa Senators. And we're really excited to be kicking off this show. So, the first thing that I wanted to talk about is your thoughts on the current roster. So, obviously, there's been a lot of changes this offseason, but let's kind of go through the roster and see where your confidence level is at. So, obviously, the forward group, we have some new players like Vladimir Tarasenko, Dominic Kubalik. Shane Pinto isn't signed yet. Hopefully, he can kick the season off with the team. But, Paul, how are you feeling about the forward group in Ottawa?
Well, Jacob, the Hockey Writers actually came out this week with an article. It's called "Ranking NHL Teams by Forwards." So I took a look at that. Where do the Senators stack up? Now they projected that the Senators this year would score 501 goals. That's what the 501 goals. Their top six. So it's kind of average among the NHL teams. And then, I looked at the Atlantic Division. Okay, how does 501 goals stack up against the competition? The Senators would be outgunned by the three teams that I think are locks for one of the playoff spots, and that's Toronto, Tampa, probably Florida. Um, They've got the youngest top six in the league in the Atlantic Division. They're tied with the Canadiens. So then the question becomes, because my prediction is they're gonna make the playoffs, but via a wild card spot. And so they outgunned Boston on goals and Detroit, but somehow not Buffalo. For some reason, THW put Buffalo at 601 goals, which I find, I don't know, must have been a typo or something. But all of that to say is, it's going to be a competitive forward group, but nothing that's going to dominate. They're going to be in tough for a playoff spot, despite the additions they've made.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of young talent in the Ottawa forward group. But like you mentioned with Buffalo too, there's a lot of really good talent, especially in that top six. So it'll be exciting to be watch both of these teams take that next step and see how they can develop. Is there anything you wanted to add there, Dayton?
yeah, I can add that I'm not I'm not in love with the forward group as a whole.
Yeah.
So the top six, I think, is fantastic. That's a group that can compete with anybody in the league, I think. And I don't think that is a huge overstatement. Stutzla is almost certainly gonna become a young star, if he's not there already. Kachuk and Batherson, excellent. Josh Norris, I mean, he had a bit of an off year. He was out the whole year. He needs to bounce back a little bit because he'll be coming back from that injury, but he's shown that he can be just a fantastic second liner. Giroux and Tarasenko, excellent. And then it really drops off. I think the bottom six is holding back the top six a little bit. I really didn't like the signing of Zach McEwen. I think he's just a worse Austin Watson, who they had last year and should have resigned. I do like Kubalik. I do like Ridley Gregg, but I just don't know how much that can help the team. And like last year, they were a defensive liability. Not all of those guys specifically. I mean, we've got some newcomers in there, but like most of the goals, like 3/4 of the goals was coming from the top six.
Yeah.
And if Pinto remains unsigned heading into the season, that's a massive hit. So I don't know. Top six, great. Bottom six, not great. So I'm okay with it. And I think that, like Paul was saying, is going to hold him back from really securing a playoff spot. I do think also that they'll get in as a wild card, but they're going to have to overcome some challenges.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of moving parts in the bottom six right now. Obviously, the signing of Zach McEwen, Boko Imama might even challenge for a spot to play that physical role. The expectation is that Dominic Kubalik, Shane Pinto, and Mark Kastelik are the only real locks in there. Nobody really knows where Ridley Gregg is going to start the season. Parker Kelly, he didn't have a fantastic year last year before breaking his kneecap.
I was really expecting more from him, and just kind of nothing. And the injury, of course, didn't help. But
right, and there's just so many pieces that can move in and out of it. There's so many young guys that could take a spot there, like Igor Sokolov if he can get signed. Paul, I know that you're a fan of Roby Yarventi. If he can get into the lineup, I'm a huge fan of Yuri Shmikal. I think he can get into the lineup and make a good impact. But there's just so many question marks headed into training camp. So, Dayton, if you want to give me one name that you think is going to make the Senators bottom six, that maybe might come as a little bit of a surprise.
Ooh, a surprise pick. Okay. I think my surprise pick would be Schmeichel. Schmeichel? Is that how you said it?
Yeah. We'll have to wait until he's on the North American ice and hear some announcements. But
fair. Yeah, I haven't heard it said yet. I've just only read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that signing was really nice. It was low risk. I think could have some pretty good rewards. And the fact that he's potentially starting in the minors, I think, is a travesty.
Yeah. Well, and especially with his mix of size and skill, like he could bring a lot of very valuable things to that bottom six. So yeah, I completely agree. He's my pick as well. Paul, I know that on our initial Senators roundtable to kick things off, you answered this question and said Roby Yarventi. Are you going to stick with him still now that we're a bit closer to camp, or do you have another name that you're thinking of?
No, I've fallen in love with Angus Crookshank. So I think he could sneak through if he has good camp. So I'd watch him. When I think of the bottom six, so the problem last year was they couldn't score, and this year, if they can get Pinto signed, then I think they've got a pretty strong third line. They'll have Kubalik, Pinto centering it, and probably Ridley Gregg on the other side. Fourth line, when I think of McEwen, Kastelik, and Parker Kelly, I'm not impressed. But look, as you guys point out, there's plenty of options there to beef up that fourth line. You mentioned a few: Sokolov, Schmeichel, I think if I've got the pronunciation right, and guys like Crookshank. So fourth line, that's open right now. I think you can see a lot of changes in there.
Yeah, no, bang on. And one thing that's going to come key, and we'll actually probably end up talking about this a little bit more with the defense, but it all comes down to deployment and how DJ Smith does with that group, and the matchups that the team gets and whatnot. So, like I said, let's move on to defense. How you feeling about the defense, Dayton?
Much better than I have in the past.
Yeah,
I think we have seen some fantastic upgrades. Getting Jacob Chychrun was robbery. That shouldn't have happened, and it did, and it was great. Now, of course, whether he can stay healthy or not is a completely different discussion. But having him along with Sanderson and Shabbat and Jake, did I say Jake Sanderson? Yes. Sanderson. Yeah. Artem Zub, that's who I'm trying to think of.
Yeah.
And then your bottom pairing of Hamonic and Brandstrom, that's a solid group. It's much better than it's been in the past. And in the past, it's been one of the reasons the Senators have lost a lot. They've been sieves, and the goalies have been just ruined, and there's been no hope. But this year, I think there is. Anyone goes down, bring in Clevin. That's a great addition. He's a fantastic option for a third pairing, maybe a second pairing in the future. Yeah, big guy, shut her down. This is a solid group.
Yeah, and I think it's a top four that can contend with most teams in the league. Obviously, everybody's going to have their preference based on, do you want an offensive blue line? Do you want defensive? Do you want big and heavy? Everybody has their preferences, but on paper, it's just as competitive as anybody else for the top four, in my opinion. But like you said, with the bottom pair, you have Tyler Clevin that can jump in if there's an injury. You have Jacob Bernard Docker. Maybe Lassie Thompson has a good year this year. He kind of plateaued a bit last year, but we'll wait and see what he looks like this year. Paul, anything you wanted to add on the defense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as optimistic as you guys on the defense. Let me take a crack at them. And I don't expect it to be popular, but I don't think, you're looking at a well-rounded defense. I'm not denying that. But when I look at the lineup, I don't see anyone in there that would crack the top 20, maybe not even the top 20 in the league. So, you take are they the type of squad that you need to make a playoff, a long run in the playoffs? I don't think so. I think you'll see an improvement this year in that decor because you've got better goaltending. And I don't think they'll be gripping the stick as hard as they have in the past because the goaltending was so shaky. Chychrun should take some pressure off Chabot. He won't be doing the time that he has been, and that you should see an improvement there. Health's always a consideration, but to Dayton's point, you do have some people that could step in there, like Tyler Clevin. So yeah, I don't think you can be jumping up and down about them. You're not dealing with an elite core, but yeah, they're better than they were, and they've got with the improvements in the team this year, I think you'll see better performance out of them.
Good. And you know what? I like a little bit of disagreement here. Makes for some good conversation. So like, what's one thing that you would like to see improved on the defensive group? Is there one glaring thing that you're kind of missing out on this, Paul?
Well, I don't know. I'd like to see Chabot gel into what he was predicted to be. I mean, I remember when he first came in the league, what people were saying, well, he's Norris Trophy for sure. That never really happened. And so he's got to, yeah, well, if I were an Ottawa Senators fan or if I were coaching, sure, I'd want to see some improvement from him.
Okay, fair enough. Is there anything? Oh, sorry, you continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dayton, is there anything that you kind of think that could see improvement, or are you happy with the way this group is?
I think for the most part, I'm pretty happy. I'm gonna back up Paul and say, yeah, Chabot hasn't really taken that step from a number one to a top guy.
Yeah,
we saw him flirt with it when he hit. Was it 50 points? 55?
55 points in the sophomore year,
yeah. Yeah, 55 points and hasn't really come close. I think the next highest was 41.
Yeah.
Injuries have been a problem. Overdeployment has been a problem. Chychrun should solve that. Sanderson should help with that. Yeah, seeing him take that next step would be nice.
Cool. One last question then we're going to ask you guys about the defense. The end of the 2023-24 season, who finishes the year as Ottawa's best defenseman? Dayton, you want to go first?
Jake Sanderson.
Yeah, I agree. Paul?
I'm putting all my money on Chabot. So
fair enough. Yeah.
He
is due for a big year this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Cool. So let's just take another step back in the lineup and head into the crease and talk about the goaltending. Paul, how you feeling about the signing of Joonas Korpisalo? I know you had an article come out not too long ago about how the team needs to kind of stand packed on who their number one goaltender is and roll with that. So yeah, what are you thinking about the goaltending?
Well, Corpusalo, I wrote a piece a while back saying that the Senators could regret that contract. And the reason I said that is because he's never really played more than 40 games. He's been inconsistent. There's been flashes of brilliance. I'm not denying that with the guy, but there's been times when he's been awful. Really untested as a number one starting goalie, and they got him for 5 years. That's a really long time to commit to him. So he's got to live up to the hype. And I'm not saying he can't. He did very well in Columbus with an awful defense in front of him. So I think with a better defense here that Ottawa offers, you may see a different kind of guy. But like I say, Korpisalo and Forsberg, their health is going to be key because those are the two horses they're going to ride. And if one of them gets hurt, it's going to be Matt Sogard, a rookie, that they're going to have to bring up. One of the things that I'm going to be looking at is I read a stat recently where I think 13 of 15 teams that made it to the playoffs last year, and I realize there were 16, but 13 of 15 had save percentages of 900. So that's what it took to make the playoffs. Are either of those two guys much beyond 900? Not really, but that's the type of save percentage you're going to have to see from those guys. If to give Ottawa the kind of goaltending they're going to need to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's been an up and down last few years for Korpisalo. He had some seasons in the high 800s, and last year he finished with I think it was a 921 in like 14 games with LA. So it's hard to really predict what you're going to get. And like you said, that 5 years could turn out to be pretty risky. Dayton, how are you feeling about the tandem?
On paper, I think we have a great tandem in Ottawa. Excuse me. Korpisalo has shown that he can be a starting goalie. So has Forsberg. That's a pretty solid tandem heading into the season. But haven't we been here before? Heading into last season, we had Talbot, who was fantastically consistent throughout his entire career, and Forsberg, who had shown some really great stuff and been a starting goalie when Matt Murray had gone down. Before that, we had Matt Murray, needed a change of scenery, Stanley Cup winner. Like, I'm just a little gun shy here. We've got a guy in Ottawa that, like, should work. Everything says it should work.
Yeah.
But will it? I want it to. I think it will. But I can't say definitively, yes, this is a great tandem. I just don't know.
Well, you know what, Dayton, to build on your point of, we've seen this movie before. I mean, what kills me is Gustafsson, right? We shipped him out of the town to the Wild, and then the guy comes up with a 2.1 goals against average, 931 save percentage, and he's second in the NHL. The Hockey Writers put him as one of the top goaltenders in the league. It's amazing what we acquire and then what we ship out of town. It's as if, we didn't have bad luck. We wouldn't have any luck at all in between the pipes. So,
yeah. Well, you look at like all the goaltenders that Ottawa has traded over the years. Obviously, they had Ben Bishop, they had Robin Lehner. Now Philip Gustafsson is the latest edition of that. Like, Ottawa seems to always trade the guy right before he really breaks out. And obviously, people might not remember how good that Ben Bishop and Robin Lehner were. But yeah, they were fantastic right after leaving Ottawa. Now Philip Gustafsson, got to really start being careful about trading the young goalies. And I'm really nervous about how Mads Sogard and Levi Merilainen are going to kind of develop while they have Korpisalo locked in for 5 more years. Obviously, Forsberg's contract is up pretty soon, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. I really don't want to see another situation where we give up on a goalie.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been following Sogard since he was in junior. I grew up near Medicine Hat, so yeah, he's a fantastic goalie and can be a starter. And thankfully, the defense is a little bit more solid.
Yep.
When Gustafsson was coming up with the Senators, the defense was terrible.
Yeah.
And now we have guys who can actually play defensively.
Yep.
So that should make things better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna move on from our kind of confidence levels. But before we do that, we're gonna go into the over and under lines that some Senators fans set online. But yeah, before we head into that, here's a message from the Hockey Writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
All right, welcome back. I'm gonna give you guys some lines that some people online set. So if you don't know how over under works, I'm gonna give you a number. It's usually gonna end in 0.5, just because if you're working with whole numbers, you want to go over or under that if it's pretty close. And yeah, you're just gonna tell me if you think it's gonna be higher or lower, or over or under, and just give me a little quick reasoning why. So I did this in an article, gave my thoughts on thehockeywriters.com, but I figured this would be a good opportunity to kind of give some more people some more opinions on this. So Ottawa Senators over under 92.5 points in the regular season. It's usually about 93 to 95 to get in. So this is right around that mark. Paul, do you think it's over or under?
I'm saying it's over, Jacob, for no other reason that I'm publicly on the record as saying they're going to make the playoffs. And if they're going to make the playoffs, they need to be over that 92.
Okay, Dayton?
Over. If they stay healthy, they should easily improve on their 86 points last year. At 92, that's what, 4 more wins? That's doable.
Perfect. And yeah, you look at like Josh Norris coming in, Jonas Korpisalo, he's gonna hopefully be better than Talbot last year. Full year of Chychrun, hopefully. A lot of things that can combine to help them get to that point. Tim Stützle, over under 99.5 points, Dayton.
Over. I think he's going to break 100 this year. I've been not skeptical. I've been restrained in my praise of him. I thought he's been a fantastic prospect ever since he's coming up, but I thought he was like Patrice Bergeron. Fantastic two-way player, going to hit like 70, maybe 80 points, and then he comes out with 95. This kid's the real deal. He's hitting 100.
Cool. Paul?
I'm saying over, and I'm saying over because he should do better because of the improvements they've made to the team. And look, it's only 9 more points. I think the kid can do it.
Yeah, fair enough. I will say in my article, I did say under. And that's partly because Josh Norris is coming back to take a little bit more of the workload off of him. He might get a little bit less ice time. And I do think that he is going to be a 110-point guy in the future. But I do think that he's going to stay right around that 95-point mark, 96 points, and then take that big next step next season. So that's just my thoughts. Don't come at me with pitchforks.
This is heresy.
Next up, Brady Tkachuk, over under 39.5 goals. Dayton?
I think over. I'm not super confident on it because you did mention Josh Norris will be back. Yeah. He should be scoring a lot of goals. So will Brady hit the 40? Sure. I don't know if he'll go much over that, though.
Okay. Paul?
I say over for the same reason Stützle was over in the improvements in the team. And I think Tarasenko will be playing on the wing with him in between Stützle, and he'll feed off him.
Yeah, fair enough. And it's really interesting because you have the conversation of there's better line mates to take the goals away, or there's better line mates to help him score more. So that's a really interesting conversation to have, and maybe we can save that for next time. Next line, Senators over under 5.5 wins in November. So I don't know if you know the total record for November over the past 2 years.
Yes.
Painfully aware.
They are 5-21 in the month of November over the last 2 seasons. That's like they're out of the playoffs by the end of November. So this year they have 9 games. 7 of them made the playoffs last year. Are you going to take the over or under, Paul?
I'm taking the under, and because that's 666 hockey, as a points percentage wise, and they've got a tough schedule. I checked, 6 games were against playoff teams from last year, and then 4 are against Atlantic Division opponents, so they'll be tough games. And 2 of those opponents are actually Toronto and Tampa, so they're favored to win the cup in many quarters. And you've got 1 against the Wings, and the Wings are going to have something to prove as a contender for a wild card. So it's I don't know, what's the line from Gordon Lightfoot, wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, is something like when the winds of November come early, abandon all hope, something like that. But yeah, that's the Senators' experience with the month of November, and this year is going to be no different. It'll be tough.
Yeah. Dayton, what do you think?
Let's be a little contrarian. I think they're going to go over. Let's break that curse.
Fair enough. It'll be tough because, like you said, Paul, they have really tough opponents in there. There's no free points coming out of that month. I took the under on it, but I don't think it's going to be like 3-6 or 2-7. I think it'll be split right down the middle. They're going to go 4-5, 5-4, but I don't see them hitting the 6 wins. Obviously, it'd be great if they did. Give some real good stories to write about in November. But yeah, here's a fun one that somebody suggested on Twitter or X, whatever we call it now. Josh Norris, over under 0.5 Selke votes, whether that be a first place vote or a fifth place vote. Is he going to get any votes at all? What do you think, Dayton?
I'm going to go under. That's a fun thought, but he's not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, I'm saying under as well. He's sure, he's a two-way player. He's got that reputation, but he hasn't played in a year. He's going to have a whole bunch of challenges to overcome. So I wouldn't bet on that. I'd take the under.
Yeah, it's definitely tough with him missing all but 8 games last year. Before that, he was like a really good two-way, not defenseman, forward. Scored a lot of goals, did some great defensive things, played on the penalty kill. I could see him being in the conversation. The only reason I took the over in the piece I wrote was because JT Miller has received Selke votes in each of the last 2 years. Never know who's going to vote for what, but somehow JT Miller made it on the list. I think Josh Norris can too.
Who
next
votes
up,
these? Who votes these crazy sports writers? I mean,
yeah.
All right. Well, them.
And I think it was a Pittsburgh writer that voted for JT Miller on the Selke. I don't know. Might have just watched a couple games and had some good games. I don't know. Matthew Joseph, over under 0.5 games played. Is he going to be traded before the season starts to make room for Shane Pinto? Paul?
Under, because he's out the door, because Ottawa's got to sign Pinto. And him leaving is the only way they're going to do it.
Okay. Dayton?
Before I say, I'd like you to just put on your tinfoil hats for a second. I think he's over. I have started to see some trade rumors pop up about Shane Pinto. I don't love them. I don't want it to happen. But I don't see anybody who would take Matthew Joseph. Like, you'd have to pay somebody to take him. And the Senators don't have anything to pay somebody to take him.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to keep him, which means that they're going to have to trade someone else. Who's tradable? Well, probably the guy who's asking for about $2 million and hasn't got it yet. So maybe Shane Pinto sits out a little bit. Maybe he gets traded. I've seen a rumor to the Boston Bruins. I don't know how credible it is, In fact, I would say it's largely not, but maybe Fabian Lysell comes in. I like him. He's fantastic. And the Senators need right wingers. I think that's like two birds, one stone, right? But then, of course, that kind of ruins the third line. It's an awful situation. There's no winning. I don't know. That's my take.
It's a tough one to be in. During our season preview for the Ottawa Senators that Matthew hosted, he asked who we think is going to be traded. Now, the easy answer is Matthew Joseph. I do think that he is going to get traded before the season starts, but I did give a hot take, and just to kind of, while we have our tinfoil hats on, Dominic Kubalik, he could be gone. $2.5 million, that kind of clears out just enough for Pinto. I don't want to see it. Obviously, it would be nice to see if Matthew Joseph could go. And I say that still understanding that he does have value and he is a good third line player when he's playing his game. He just wasn't that last year, and that $3 million can go to better places in Ottawa. But I do like Joseph as a player.
Yeah, I think that last season tanked his value. Like if he would have, I think if someone wanted him, the trade would have happened already.
Yeah. Interesting to see what happens. Something to follow for sure.
Yeah.
Really quick, Anton Forsberg and Jonas Korpisalo over under a 904 save percentage. Dayton.
Let's go over. Paul was mentioning that we the Senators, it's just a bad habit I have. The Senators need a save percentage over 900. Both guys can hit that over extended periods of time. We'll have to see. But I think that, yeah, that pair reunited after their Columbus days, that's going to be feeling some mojo. They're gonna gel. It's all gonna work.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same thing. I think there's just going to be that kind of, like you said, that mojo, the vibe that make them do pretty well together. Paul, what do you think?
Well, lifetime, Forsberg's got a 908 and Korpisalo a 904. So theoretically, they can do it. I'm going to say over, if only to save my own skin again, because I'm publicly on record as saying the Senators are going to make a wild card spot.
Yeah.
And so if they're going to make that wild card spot, they got to be over 900. So, that's where I am on that. Over.
Perfect. Last two here. Let's say the cap rises $5 million tomorrow. Shane Pinto is going to get the contract that he wants, that the team is willing to sign him to. Is that going to come in at over or under $2.3 million? Paul?
Over. That's kind of the number I've read about. All the pundits are speculating around 2.5. Question I have is the term. If I were Pinto and you gave me 2.5, I'd say, great, we're going short term here because I'm going to prove myself in Ottawa, and then I'm going to hit on the free market, and I'm going to get my worth. So,
yeah, when it comes to term with Pinto, I think there is no realistic possibility that he gets any more than 4 years. And I look at the Alex Newhook contract, 4 years by just under $3 million. The Matthew Joseph contract as well. Both of them would fit Shane Pinto pretty well, but I don't see a world where he wants a contract longer than 2 years with the money that Ottawa has and what he's done so far. So what do you think, Dayton?
I'm going to go under. I did write a little piece about I looked at what Shane Pinto's contract should come in at and how the Senators could fit him in. And a lot of the comparable value hits right around that 1.8 to 2 million. And I think that's where Dorian wants to get his sweet spot. It seems like they're playing a little bit of hardball. Yeah. Otherwise, we would have seen something happen, right?
Yeah.
We can kind of read between the lines here a little. But I think I wouldn't expect to see his contract much over that 2 million mark, especially if we're talking like a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
They'll keep it a little bit on the lower end and then pay him more. I think we've seen too many times where the Senators have jumped in way too quick. Colin White.
Yeah.
That was a poor decision.
Yeah.
And it was based off of one single season. And people could make the same argument about Jake Sanderson, but Jake Sanderson was a 5th overall pick.
Yeah.
That's a little different. So yeah, no, I think Shane Pinto's should be expecting about a $2 million.
Cool. So yeah, last one here. DJ Smith, head coach of the Ottawa Senators, over or under 81.5 games. Dayton?
Over. He's Dorian's guy. So DJ Smith will be there as long as Dorian is there. And I don't think he's getting fired this year. Next year, we'll see. We'll see how this season goes.
Yeah, I think next summer is the big one. If Dorian and Smith are still around, next summer is when Andlauer is going to have full control, start bringing in his own guys. We'll see what goes from there. But Paul, do you think he makes it to the offseason?
Well, I'm saying over, Jacob, because if they're on track to make the playoffs and everybody on the Rideau Canal, including me, is saying, yep, they're going to make the playoffs, then everybody's going to be happy. DJ's doing his job. And if that's the case, they're not going to make a change if that's the case. I mean, the only reason I can see that he loses his job is if things go off the rails. Yep. Maybe in November. Who knows? But I say over.
Well, if you're a betting man, put money on him getting fired in November, just based on history. But no, I do think that he's going to do the whole season as well. But it all depends on November. I don't think he gets fired in like February or March or whatever. I think it's going to be the very beginning of the season or not at all. So it's kind of a toss up for me there, but I'll go with the over just for positivity's sake. So yeah, that wraps up our first episode of the Senators Roundtable. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the Ottawa Senators on Substack. Check out both of my co-hosts' stuff on thehockeywriters.com. Check them out on Twitter. And yeah, so I appreciate everybody coming and tuning in. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.